Hi, happy Saturday. Hope everybody's alright. I just wanted to have a ramble. I've done a load of videos this week. It's just been super intense energies, hasn't it? It's just increasing and then it settles down and bubbles up somewhere else, you know. It's like the cages are getting rattled all around, you know. So it's interesting. And again, I got to go away actually last week and it was a really beautiful little reset for me. Caught myself in some more bullshit patterns, acknowledged it was my own doing, all my own doing, and, you know, tried to release a bit. I always find some kind of humour in it all, you know, when you're trawling through these densities, you know, wanting these automatic emotional responses to just sort of fucking change, you know, lighten up, loosen up. But obviously, you know, I think why this awakening of consciousness is happening and why so many people are having these completely spontaneous awakenings like I did, you know, only not far off 3 years ago now, but still really early on in my journey, you know. And it's just because everything is so fucking false and dense and, you know, it needs to be so false and dense for people to see it and to break out of it. And so, you know, the ugliness will continue for a bit and we all feel it. Oh, I got a jumper from my mate, MJ from Alter Love. That's her brand. She's wonderful. She's a real empathic leader, in my opinion, of like the conscious community or spiritual forethought and, you know, understanding what it is that we're doing, both with our minds, bodies and souls, you know, throughout the awakening and just how to help things. She's written a book called The Fearless Life Guide, which is great as well. And she does YouTube chats like this and she does tarot readings and, you know, all this jazz. So I'll put a little thing on. She sells jumpers and hoodies and all sorts of nice goodies, which rhymed. So anyway, what was it about? Yeah, so, you know, it's no shock that things just continue to amp up and these narratives are pushed out and rolled out, which we foresaw coming anyway, so it's no shock. But it is sort of, you know, it's a bit off-putting, isn't it? It's a bit off-putting. Like, I laugh. I have to laugh because there's no other way. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing really worth sitting and shivering about, is there? It's just sort of like, yeah, I think because I keep just feeling so fortunate, you know, that I am on this journey and I am where I am and so are the others around me and I have such a small circle, you know. I've never had a big group of people or a circle of people around me or anything, but my little family unit's tight, you know, and I've got a couple of good friends, like, and that's new to me, you know. I'm still feel so fearlessly sort of solo, though, on everything, sort of spiritually, you know. It's like, it's all your own individual journey, isn't it? Yeah, I just had a nice moment in the shower this morning. I got a speaker on really loud and I was singing Joyful, Joyful from Sister Act. And I was like, you know, really, really going for it, like with the gospel choir and stuff. And I really felt like I was like praising the Lord. It's making me laugh, but I really felt like that. And sometimes when I sing, it feels so good for me. Like, it feels like a gift, not just for me, but for the universe. Oh, it's making me laugh now saying it, you know, because if anybody else had heard me, I'm sure they wouldn't be saying it was a gift for the universe, but it just feels so good, doesn't it? And yeah, like, I remember as a kid, like, how much music meant to me, and yeah, it's funny, like, we've always got music on here, and all kinds of different music, and the emotions that music invoke, and, you know, the thoughts or the memories, or just the spaces that they can take you in. It's beautiful, powerful stuff, you know. And even as a kid, I used to sing my despair out into a ballad, you know, and so these songs, they're marvellous anyway. So I was praising the Lord in the shower and I'm like, just go and have a chat. What the hell is all this pressure you've put on yourself? I do this sporadically for no good reason other than my own, you know, being scared of my own shadow or something, feeling a bit vulnerable one day. But yeah, so what do I want to talk about? I wanted to have a little chat quickly about astrology. I'm not going to fucking bang on about it because it is off-putting. I put myself off. But I'm on this journey that continues, and a couple of weeks ago and before, you know, my last videos and my mindset over the last few months has just been so pathetically desperate to find out the truth. And it's like, what the jazz, you know? Having a little journey with the mushrooms the other day, and speaking and, you know, getting some beautiful reflections back. It was just so nice to be able to go, you find your own way, you know? It always feels like little one, you know? You find your own way. It's like, it doesn't fucking matter what anyone else is doing. That, you know, my problem prior was that everyone's doing so much fucking shit. And I'm like, trying to find the right way for me and then, you know, sort of attempting to impose it on everyone else, and it's just got a bit, you know, just like, what am I doing? I found myself on some, although I've got to be honest, so I'll say it because it still bothers me. It's like, you know, when people have a YouTube channel and they're just sort of like, they ignore a comment, I just think, piss off sometimes. Piss off. It's so rude, you know, it's so rude. And I'm not really talking about people with huge channels. I'm talking about a few thousand, you know, this the Vedic astrology that I've been looking into, or it just seems to be a bit sort of a bit of strange energies within these sectors, you know, which I wasn't expecting, but it's the same as you get in the spiritual community or the conscious community or however we're saying. You know, you get these strange characters with these strange egos, you know, and so it's like you've got these people that are like, you know, they've studied all the Vedas and so therefore they know better than everybody else, and they use tropical rashis and sidereal nakshatras and, you know, that is right. And you know, and I'm like, well, I can see, again, how we're all just looking at a circle in the fucking sky. We're looking at the same stars, the same planets in the same goddamn sky. No matter where we are, yeah, we'll see it differently. Not as differently as people think, because I'm sure we're not on a bloody spinning marble. But anyway, all that same shit's there. So you can pick and choose and, you know, do as many studies and cases to back up your own preference as you want, but it seems that it's still just a case of sort of like, we seek out the information usually that goes along with our intuition, almost confirmation bias, you know. So I've deliberately been trying to put myself in these circles which seem to be quite small and almost like elite in a way, you know, like everybody's like, la-di-da, I study sidereal and I'm a Western person. I'll flip my sari over my shoulder. I'm such a fucker. And I don't really mean it, but it's just, you know, I don't usually write too many comments on things. And when I do, it's because it means something to me. I don't go around arse-licking on YouTube channels or anything like that. And I very, very, very rarely write a comment. And when I do, it either fucking bothers someone to fuck. Like, it'll trigger someone and some whole shit will happen. And I'll be like, oops, why did I bother? Or it will just completely get totally ignored. And yeah, and it bothers me sometimes. And then, you know, part of me is like, oh, am I being shadow banned for my truth? And then it's like, no, you're not. Like, the reality is I've probably sworn, and so it's gone into a spam folder or something, and, you know, that's why I don't get a reply or whatever. But yeah, I just feel like, basically, I was asking a couple of questions. the person didn't reply because he's too special to reply. He replied in a community post, you know, to anybody who doesn't know what it is that I do over here, and you know, this is the way it is. And it's like, all right, I wanted some personal questions, like, did you struggle coming to these conclusions? You know, what is it? Why do you think that this? You know, it's like, oh, there's all these intellectual debates in the astrological community, especially in the Vedic and the sidereal. And it's just strange, you know. And so I don't want to be part of that either. But anyway, what's happened is that I've gone, pressure's off. I don't care. Like, I see things as I see things. And some other people will see it like that, and some others won't. It doesn't matter. But the point is, you can argue a point and an argument for any point on the circle. Any perception, any angle is arguable. So it's pointless, isn't it? And, you know, the point is, again, to just find ourselves. What resonates with me. And I know what resonates with me. It's just I was on some campaign to make other people resonate with it as well. What a twat. But yeah, so my issue is, this is for me to me, and it's going to be boring for anyone else, but so I like so much of the sidereal Vedic astrology and how structured it is and how simple it is. And also there's things about that structure which I really don't like. And things about, you know, sort of a tropical Placidus system of splitting up the houses and involving outer planets and looking at different aspects, which I like as well. So, but really, like, again, the juiciest stuff for me are these lunar mansions and the nakshatras, which can be used with whatever system, you know, or just on their own. So it's like, I think that is for me just like where I'm starting off. I'm gonna study these 27 stars, the 27 nakshatras, the myths, the deities, and just really try and get accustomed to the energies, because for me this is where the juice is, and it doesn't matter how you're perceiving anything else really. But again, it does, because the nakshatras can be started from a tropical perspective, or they can be started from a sidereal perspective, Aries being Ashwini, which is so there's a few conflicting things that I need to iron out for myself to know how I'm going to go forward. And it just has to be intuitive, doesn't it? Just intuitive astrology. Like, we don't have to, it's like, this is the problem. It's like, as we move times, you get people that are so stuck on the past, and part of me is like that. Like, there's part of me that's always like, just don't ruin tradition. And it's felt really strong in me recently, coupled with this coronavirus shit and the unveiling of the disgusting medical interference and tyranny on our lives, like on such a major scale. And I was aware of little bits of it before, after the awakening. Prior to that, you know, I was just a fucking knobhead like everybody else. I'd have probably been getting the COVID vaccine. I wouldn't have been wearing a mask, though. I know I would have never worn a mask. But what I'm saying is, we're all blind before we can see, aren't we? So, but anyway, so this feeling that I have of holding on to tradition or old stuff, roots, you know, like, don't fuck with, like, with the roots of things. Like, we can analyze and change things and perceive things to help us in different ways as we evolve, but it's like the roots should always be the roots. So it's like, for the astrology, for me, I'm finding some merge anyway. But with the medical stuff, it's like, if you think back to the roots of medicine and healing, and you know, it's like plants and herbs and homeopathy and all these, you know, all these different ways, these different modalities, these traditional magical feminine ways, it feels like, of healing, and just all that, you know, shaman, medicine men and women, and how that's, especially obviously in the Western world, is now just such a masculine, technological AI program, you know, system where you know, it's so impersonal, and everyone is just a number and a disease or a digit or a, you know, to plug in with this pharmaceutical or that pharmaceutical. And I'm really grateful I've stayed the fuck away from doctors and hospitals my whole life. Like, aside from giving birth, like, I'm not one of those people. I think you can find anything in anything. And so, you know, it's like, I don't know. I just think that we interfere on a huge level, you know, under the guise of preventatives or protection or safety. Medically, I'm talking about, you know, vaccines for this, that and the other, fucking all sorts of bullshit. And, you know, I know so many people that are sort of like hooked up to antidepressants now and they're numb. They can't even get a tear out of their eyes because they're so separated and detached from their emotional body, you know. And so it feels like at whatever point this huge corruption began and the pharmaceutical giant overtook and greed and money and power, and it's like they've made us suffer, potentially created these problems, you know, cancers, autisms, all these mental health illnesses on the spectrum. And you can just see how these things have grown over the years. Like, what is that if not what, you know, we are being fed? Food, waters, things for the mind. We're just being fed bullshit through every orifice. And so, although, you know, the original root of the idea of something like a vaccine to help and to cure or whatever, things have gone awry over the period. And it's like the intent of healing and medicine has devolved. And now, you know, we keep people alive on machines. We have such a hypocritical health system. It is so bizarro. And yeah, obviously this coronavirus thing just proved it for me from the off. It's like, you know, the most logical thing was to just protect anybody who's vulnerable and crack on, you know, with life. And the opposite has happened, like we knew it would, but it's been drawn out for a whole year. And now the vaccines come out, the vaccine. And it makes me think of, do you know, Roald Dahl's The Witches? And she had this little potion of, I think it was like Formula 845 or something. And she was like, you know, 6 million doses or whatever. And it's like, that's what these fucking crooks sound like when they're up on the stages talking about how many doses of the vaccines they've got. But, you know, logically, common sense, rationale, we're like, how can you have found a cure, created the vaccine and got, you know, safety results in 10 months? It's new technology, it's dangerous. The potentiality for manipulation is huge, and we're not being told about it properly, and obviously being censored and demonized and all that jazz. And it's just so goddamn interesting, isn't it? I was having these ponders about the blood again the other day, because I'd found this. I found these couple of articles and a couple of videos on YouTube now where they're talking about this new advancement in medicine where they've been trying for like 50 or 70 years or something to turn A or B blood into O blood. So it's apparently, you know, this is the reason, so that it's more readily available for anybody to use, you know, for emergencies or transfusions or this, that and the other. And they've had a problem doing it because of how expensive it is in the past to make bulk, to make this like universal blood in bulk. And so like O negative blood is supposed to be the universal blood. And I know that rhesus negatives, and me as well, I've held this quite close, if like sometimes waved a flag like, you can't clone rhesus negative blood. And that innately feels right. I'm sure anyone, no matter your blood type, feel like you fuck off, you can't clone, you can clone me. But anyway, so apparently now they've found this this enzyme in, I'm sure they said it was in fecal matter, which is shit, isn't it? But they found this enzyme which can knock off the A and B antigens, the sugars, you know, and so essentially turn A or B or AB blood into O blood. And I was just like so offended. I'm like, stop fucking around. Like, get the fuck out of our bodies, you crooks. That's just all I can feel like. Get away from us, you crooks. So once I found out that information, I was like, right, so now they can make synthetic O-negative blood. Even though it's not O-negative blood, it's removing any A or B antigens. So it's sort of creating a base the same as O-negative, which could be used for certain stuff. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, feeling like, because at the start of this, I'm like, they're only doing this mass testing for DNA. You know, they want the most human data, which is genetic data. So it's like some form of disease comes out. We all need to be tested. And I've always been feeling like, well, what they're looking for. And then, you know, finding out about this, this VMAT2 gene that was targeted to be deleted and suppressed by this vaccine in like 2005 or something, like 15 years ago. They've been doing this shit for ages. And so yeah, so I was just sort of like a little bit suspicious / verging on paranoid a little bit, you know. Logically I'm fine, but just having these intuitions like, what's going on here? And then yesterday I found this I was reading this article about rhesus null blood, and there's only like 40 people in the world with rhesus null blood or whatever, and it was this guy, Thomas I think he was called or whatever, and they were talking about how he found out he had this blood and how he used to get shipped around to donate this blood because it's so expensive to fly rare blood from country to country and all this jazz. And as I was reading this article, because I'd never really looked that much further about tracking of people, you know. I know that in the like gang stalking and targeted individual scope, there's been mention of like CIA documents, and I've read a few. I couldn't confirm the validity of. They looked legit, but I'm no expert. Talking about tracking of rhesus negative blood for research or for these, I think there was something in the Gateway Protocol as well about it, potentially, unless I'm talking shit. But anyway, I've seen these things about how rhesus negative people feel like they've been tracked. And then, you know, I'm reading this article and it's telling you out in the open, you know, that they do it. They, you know, they actively go looking for these people with rare blood types. And by the way, I'm not thinking any, because people know where I am. Like, I am where I am. It's easy to find if you've got a smartphone, isn't it? And, you know, your shit's registered at birth, which is just dodgy as fuck anyway, innit? Especially when you can't find out. Because I ask people all the time, I'm like, do you know your blood type? Or I'm like, find out your blood type, you know, if I suspect they're rhesus negative or whatever. And people can never just get a straight answer out of the fucking doctors, ever. It's like trying to find the fucking holy grail, getting your information. But anyway, so yeah, they do. They look for people, and if they move, they try and track them down, you know, if they've swapped phone numbers or whatever, because these people are really valuable, important people. Not me and my bog standard O-negative blood, I'm not saying that. But, you know, people with rhesus null, or there's certain different phenotypes and markers that are exceptionally rare. So anyway, following on down this article, and it's like telling me that there's these 3 main blood banks that's all about the rare blood. And there's one in Bristol in England, and there's one in Paris, and there's one in Amsterdam. And the data banks and databases of people with rare blood types, you know. It could be, I read one example was like a lady had O negative blood, but she also had a B negative side as well or something, I don't know. So there was a few people in the world with that, and then so there's all these different markers, like the K markers one, and the RH factor is just one of them. So yeah, so it's like, it just annoys me that these things are not out in the open, because I've been sort of conspiring about this since the coronavirus. Because conspiring to myself about it, obviously, and in some videos sometimes, but because, you know, because they wanted antibodies straight away, don't they, you know, for a virus, for research or to test this, that or the other. They want antibodies, and they want fresh antibodies from COVID, people who've had COVID, and they want male donors. And, you know, I'd done a video about this like 7 or 8 months ago, talking about a bit about plasma and the plasma, what do you call it, market, product, whatever. It's a big fucking business. Business, that's it. Business. It's a big business, plasma and frozen plasma and all these drugs that they use with frozen plasma. And AB negative is the plasma, universal plasma donor. There's definitely something that feels juicy and special about the AB negative plasma. So anyway, so I was just like, this collective mass gathering of data, information, blah, 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 what they're looking for. And then anyway, so I'm on this article yesterday. I'm looking at these 3 rare blood banks. And I click on one, and it says, you know, how it takes too long to screen everybody's blood who, you know, come in to donate for this, that, and the other markers. So what they use is a PCR test. And then I'm like, oh, PCR? The same shit that doesn't really work for recording a coronavirus. The false positive rate is huge, but it's what they use to identify really specific markers in blood. But now I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, but they don't take your blood for a PCR test, do they? Could a PCR test, you know, those shit that they were sticking up your nose? I guess so. If it's a piece of your genetic material, then it would have the markers on, wouldn't it? You don't have to have, like, blood. Interesting, yeah. Anyway, so yesterday I was just like, imagine if that's it. And then what the vaccine is turning everybody's blood the same, so everybody is sort of easily controllable. Deleting the antigens and turning everybody into some baseless robot, synthetic blood, so they can plug in and crack on with the plan. So there I am, just throwing in a bit more bullshit into the conspiracy mix. But I have to speak it out sometimes, because I'm just like, I don't know. I just like to share. So anyway, hope everybody's all right. I'm excited. I've got a couple of potential orders on some paintings. I've got a massive roll of canvas coming on Monday. On the Eclipse day as well, isn't it? Shit. The Eclipse. Solar eclipse. Total solar eclipse as well. It's in Scorpio, in the sidereal Vedic. And it's in the nakshatra of Jayesta, I think is how you pronounce it. Jayesta, maybe. And she's the eldest sister, the wise one. Mercury's going to be there as well, and actually I have my natal Mercury right on the degree where this eclipse is going to be. So I don't know what it means for me, but you know, I'm guessing Mercury, communications, and I'm just feeling like the urge to speak out and, you know, regardless of my own bullshit, and just carry on talking. I'll learn something eventually. So I might do a little video about the total solar eclipse as well, but I'm going to get off now because my cup of tea's cold and my battery's going. Yeah, happy Saturday. Bye.